Morning, folks. Not doing the tap tap right away. I just had a cigarette not too long ago. Um, so I was on Discord and Dragons last night. Thank you very much to Use the Eunuch for having me on. If you're wondering about that stream, it's available on DLive for the next couple of days and on Odyssey on an ongoing basis, if I recall correctly. Uh, Sorry, I wasn't prepared with links. Oops. Um, what else? So one of the topics that came up was the potato pederast, or the diddling dictator. Yeah, the hashtag, obviously, that started with something that rhymes with speedo and ended with something that was kind of akin to rattler. So hashtag speedo rattler. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I know everybody and their cousin has covered this to death, but I figure I might as well give my 2 cents. And I generally do like to come in late because if there's um, late breaking information about something, I'd rather cover it late and be as truthful and accurate as possible than jump on something early and miss part of the story. Um, and I do always try to be as truthful with you guys as I can manage. So, or as truthful and accurate as I can manage. So, the that address that Biden gave, um, disjointed, hypocritical, and internally inconsistent, seems like a fair descriptor. Um, Four wheeler. Four wheeler with a bad engine. Excuse me. I'm not feeling my best today. Um, but in that speech, he basically painted a fairly clear picture of the attitude that his administration, his handlers, have about the state of American politics at the moment. Um, and it's pretty dark, which is kind of ironic given the attempt to make Dark Brandon a thing. It ain't gonna happen. Dim Brandon, certainly, but not dark. Uh, and then, of course, the next day, uh, when challenged about the content of that speech, he completely reversed himself. And at the same time, someone from his handling team uh, put out a tweet basically restating what had been said the night before. So there's two schools of thought about that. Either A, there's some sort of infighting going on within the administration itself, two competing agendas, or it's just massive incompetence. At this point, I do not think the old adage of giving people the benefit of the doubt and assuming incompetence before malice is appropriate. At this point, it's pretty clear that it's kind of cold out here today, too, but it's pretty clear that um, it's, even if it is uh, hypocritical and self contradictory, it's not a good idea to assume these people are incompetent anymore. These people are evil. They hate at least half of the population of the states. The population of the country they're supposed to be loyal to. And supposed to be is the strong part of that. Um, in terms of what their agendas might be, if there are two competing agendas, and I honestly think there are. I fully agree with Spoon there. It looks like two competing agendas. It looks like whoever's running the media and whoever's actually handling the president, it looks like they have two uh, similar but competitive attitudes. On one hand, there's clearly and this is probably true for both, but the will to win by any means necessary, um, even if that makes Biden look like well, um, the guy who had the funny mustache and whose dog could jump that high. Yeah, yeah. Um, Makes him look like that a little bit. And the lighting and the framing of that shot did not help. I mean, they could have pulled the camera angle back 5 or 10% and gotten the blue lines outside that red in, and probably would have broken the Iron Eagle. At least I think that's the right term. Well, the eagle silhouette behind him up a little bit. Um, Probably. It also didn't help that there was a window in the building he was in front of that made it look like the Tetragrammaton from Equilibrium. Yeah, and I do realize that's a bit of an obscure reference. If you haven't seen Equilibrium with Christian Bale, I do recommend it. It's worth watching. Um, what else? Um, as I'm idly cracking my knuckles, thinking. I mean, the people in charge, I would dearly love to be able to say they don't know what they're doing, but they clearly do. I mean, you don't go out and build a new police force within the IRS, and if you think it's anything else, you'd have to be a damn fool. This 87,000 new IRS agents, I mean, that's more than doubling the number of IRS agents. They're not going to go after the billionaires. The billionaires are smart enough to hire people, and the millionaires too, if they're either a bit sensible at all. But these people are smart enough to, uh, the people who have that kind of money, they're either smart enough or well advised enough to have offshored or otherwise protected their money. Uh, so, and they will have done it in a perfectly legal manner, if ethically objectionable. Um, but and it's pointless to go after someone like Elon Musk because he pays his taxes, and he's very vocal about how much tax he pays. When it comes to these 87,000 new IRS agents, I think you're going to see them going after people who make money online, people who do Fiverr jobs or the OnlyFans thoughts, things like that. Because a lot of these people aren't aware they're supposed to be paying taxes, which, granted, that's definitely giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they may be intentionally avoiding paying taxes. They may unintentionally be avoiding paying taxes. Uh, and they may simply not be aware of how the system works. And that four-wheeler's coming back. That's nice. Yeah, you definitely need to tune that engine a bit, but anyway, and I don't even know engines all that well. I'm a woodworker, not a mechanic. But um, as far as what the agendas might be, obviously they do dovetail in wanting to win at any cost. The problem is that they're probably also seeing the writing on the wall, which you won't get from the mainstream news. But if you talk to people online, it's very clear that none of the people who are online are big fans of Biden. Even on the left, they're not big fans of Biden. And one of the things I would really dearly love to see people do is to contact their politicians and tell them to get the hell off of Twitter. Or at the very least, use Twitter only, use Twitter only as a means of putting out an announcement, or to say, okay, we're having this event at this place at this time. And that's it. Don't communicate on Twitter. Do not try to make policy announcements on Twitter. Don't take your policy advice from Twitter. Dear fuck, are you insane? The stupidest people in the world, the people with the lowest education and attention span, are on Twitter. Twitter is, if it's not a circus, it's a madhouse. And using Twitter, and I've seen this even with politicians in Newfoundland, who will ask Twitter a question. Are you off your fucking head? There might be 3,000 Newfoundlanders on Twitter. Might be. And I wouldn't even say the number's that high. And your population is over, well, around 250,000. So that's less than 1/10 of the people that you're listening to. Or roughly 1/10. Why would you do that? Why would you think that that tiny user base is who you should talk to, who you should court, even worse? I mean, we all know Twitter silences conservative voices. Well, then you can't get an even open scope picture from Twitter of how people are thinking. But Twitter is convenient. Twitter is the fast food of social media. That's a good way to think about it. And if a politician uses Twitter to gather policy ideas, they might as well be eating McDonald's French fries for every meal and washing it down with fucking Sprite. It's mental malnutrition. Twitter is mental malnutrition, for sure. And any politician who uses Twitter to research policy positions is a damn fool. Especially if that's the only thing you're doing. And I'm going to have that cigarette now because I'm getting a little worked up and a little pissed off. But for a while, I had aspirations of running as an independent candidate for the Prime Minister position in Canada. I've had to give that up because the only way, and yes, Christopher, that was an angry tap tap. But the only way to run for office in this country is to be part of a political party. Well, if you see all the political parties as lacking, why would you want to be part of that? Unfortunately, that's the way our system works. And there's no way in hell I would join. Actually, there is one, but Newfoundlanders will understand why it's absolutely hilarious when I say. There is one national political party I would consider running for in Newfoundland, and that's the Bloc Québécois. Of all the parties that are currently in Parliament, it's the Bloc Québécois. Because they strike me as actually the most conservative and the most concerned for their own people. Unfortunately, the problem with the Bloc Québécois is that they're against the rest of Canada. So fuck them. Now, if given my choice of any political party within Canada to join, I'd probably rejoin the PPC and run for them. Unfortunately, the moment I announced that I was joining the PPC and planning a run, I would be inundated with journalists diving into my background and things that I had said, and I do say spicy things, but things that I had said in the last 6 months, let alone the last 6 years, would be brought up, thrown in my face, and I would be absolutely swamped just simply covering that, just pointing out no, right? Or I'd have to be the asshole candidate, which, okay, I might not have a problem with that, but I'd have to be the guy who looked at the journalist and went, look, that's completely pointless, it's irrelevant, fuck off. And yeah, I would not be a particularly decorous candidate in any case. But just to return to the point, the original point in this case, yes, I do realize I ramble and I get out of focus on occasion. But the same way that Twitter has a bit of an internal inconsistency, because it's obvious there are people in Twitter of at least three bents. One is by any means necessary Democrat win. One is by any means necessary diversity, which is just code for anti-white at this point, or anti-Western, which is where the globalists end up. And then there's the people who, like that LinkedIn girl, they just don't really want to work. Twitter, 4-hour work week? Fuck off. If I could find a job that let me work 4 hours a week and pay me as well as Twitter, yeah, I'd be all over it. But I don't think I could only do 4 hours work a week. I'd feel guilty about that. And even if I wasn't, like, I might spend Monday afternoon working for Twitter, but then I'd be in here the rest of the week, and probably take the weekend off if I was making that kind of money, because I could afford to. But when you're dealing with somewhere like Twitter, and I think this is potentially the third faction in the White House, the people who simply want to do their job and that's it. And they don't really want to do a lot of work because, well, they're American liberals. Not classical liberals, American liberals. American liberals are the entitled ones, the ones who think, no, I deserve whatever I get, and the more I get, the more I deserve. Entitlement. The entitled class. And unfortunately, these people who've never known struggle, okay, the biggest struggle they ever had was figuring out which college they were going to go to on their parents dying. Ugh. But these people have, if it's that third faction, if I'm right about that third faction, these people just don't care. And it's just a paycheck to them. That's fine. But just to wrap this up, if there's infighting amongst the administrative members of Biden's handlers, then that can only be a good thing for the American people. The problem is that going to lead to more fortification, more vote protection, things like that? Well, we'll see. Hopefully November is going to turn out differently than they think, anyway. Definitely different than the mainstream news seems to think. The idea that Trump is losing support is kind of hilarious. Everyone by now has seen that video comparing the crowds in the same town, or at least in the same state. And being a former pro wrestler, I pointed this out last night on Discord and Dragons. crowd reaction is incredibly important for gauging the mood. There was almost no crowd to react at Biden's event, but when you could hear the crowd at Trump's rally very loud right away, and then when Trump himself actually became visible, actually appeared to the crowd, they stepped it up at least 2 levels. When you're a pro wrestler and you step through that curtain, and the crowd that's already been kind of loud suddenly blows the roof off the place, you know you're in a good spot. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for me today. Don't think there's a lot else going on, and honestly, I'm feeling pretty beat out lately. I'm at the point now where I don't think my voice is going to recover any more than it already has. So I'm going to be attempting to do some more voiceover work. Hopefully my voice will hold out through it. And I'm finding even doing these is hard on my voice in the mornings. I'm surprisingly, I'm not a particularly big talker when I'm not around other people. Well, other than talking to myself occasionally, but generally I mumble when I do that. I still understand myself. In any case, folks, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.